The November wind cut through Boston Common with the kind of precision that made people hunch their shoulders and quicken their pace. Elena Castellanos stood motionless beside the bronze duck statues, watching families stream past in their weekend rhythm. Her charcoal cashmere coat hung perfectly tailored on her frame, but her hands were jammed deep in her pockets, and her eyes tracked nothing in particular. She'd come here without thinking, the way water finds cracks in pavement. Somewhere in the blur of motion and laughter around her, something was shifting inside her, though she couldn't name it yet. A little girl in a red knit hat stopped directly in front of her. She couldn't have been more than 7, her nose pink from the cold. Behind her, a man in a worn canvas jacket juggled a diaper bag in the hand of a younger boy. "You look sad," the girl said. Not a question. A statement delivered with the blunt honesty only children possess. Elena blinked. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Thank you." She tilted her head, unconvinced. "Come home with she announced. "Daddy makes really good hot chocolate." The man, her father, rushed forward, embarrassment flooding his face. "Sophie, you can't just—" "I'm so sorry, ma'am. She's very friendly. Too friendly, apparently." Elena felt something crack in her chest. The smallest smile. "It's okay." But Sophie wasn't finished. She reached out and took Elena's hand with both of hers, small fingers wrapping around her palm. "You shouldn't be alone when you're sad. That's what Daddy always says." The father met Elena's eyes with an apologetic shrug, but there was warmth there too, something genuine. "She's not wrong about the hot chocolate," he offered quietly. Elena should have politely declined. She had a penthouse waiting 12 blocks away. She had emails. She had a calendar that governed her existence in 15-minute increments. But standing there with this child's hands around hers, something in her couldn't say no. "I wouldn't want to impose," Elena heard herself say. "You're not," he replied. And somehow, Elena believed him. 3 weeks earlier, Elena had been in Singapore closing a deal that would expand her investment portfolio into Southeast Asian markets. She'd built Castellanos Capital from nothing, turning a small inheritance and a ruthless work ethic into a billion-dollar empire before she turned 38. She employed 300 people. She sat on 4 boards. Her name appeared in Forbes and Fortune with predictable regularity. She also ate dinner alone 6 nights out of 7. Her condo looked like a showroom. Her last relationship had ended 2 years ago when Michael finally admitted he was intimidated by her success and couldn't handle always coming second to her work. She hadn't argued. He wasn't wrong. The routine had felt sustainable until her mother's lawyer called about the estate. Heart attack, sudden and final. Her mother had been gone 2 days before Elena could get a flight back from Tokyo. They'd spoken once a month, surface-level conversations that never went deeper than weather and work. The funeral was small. Elena had organized everything from her phone. Afterward, she'd found herself driving to places she didn't plan to go, walking routes that made no sense. She'd ended up at Boston Common on a Saturday afternoon, watching other people live lives that seemed to contain something hers didn't. And then, a little girl in a red hat had seen straight through her. David Fletcher's apartment was in Jamaica Plain, a 4th-floor walk-up in a building that had seen better decades. The stairs creaked. The hallway smelled like someone was cooking curry. It was the opposite of everything Elena knew, and yet when David unlocked the door and ushered them inside, Elena felt something settle in her shoulders. "It's not much," David said, scooping up scattered toys with one hand while balancing his younger son, Tyler, on his hip. "It's warm," Elena replied. And it was, not just temperature. The whole space radiated life. Children's artwork covered the refrigerator. A bookshelf overflowed with cracked spines and mismatched volumes. The couch had a blanket thrown over one arm, still holding the shape of someone's last nap. Sophie was already pulling off her boots. "Can Miss Elena stay for dinner too?" "Sophie." "It's Elena, just Elena." She knelt down to her level, meeting her eyes. "And I don't want to be any trouble." "Do you like spaghetti?" Sophie asked. "I do." "Then it's not trouble." She said it like the matter was settled, then disappeared down the hallway. David set Tyler down, and the 3-year-old immediately attached himself to his father's leg. I really didn't mean for her to ambush you in the park. She's going through a phase where she thinks she can fix everything. Maybe she can, Elena said quietly. Something passed between them then. Recognition, maybe. David looked about her age, perhaps a year or two younger, but his eyes carried weight. This was a man who'd learned things the hard way. Spaghetti's honestly all I had planned anyway, David admitted. But if you're serious about staying, I won't say no. Tyler here doesn't talk much yet, and Sophie can only carry so much conversation. I'm serious. David nodded slowly. Okay then, make yourself at home. There's coffee in the pot if you want it, though it's from this morning. Sophie will give you a full tour if you let her, which includes every stuffed animal she owns and their complete backstories. As if summoned, Sophie reappeared with a battered teddy bear missing one eye. This is Professor Snuggles. He's been to space. Elena accepted the introduction gravely. That's very impressive. Dinner happened in stages. David cooked while Elena sat at the small kitchen table, Tyler on the floor nearby building towers from blocks just to knock them down. Sophie narrated her entire day, including a detailed breakdown of what her friend Emma had brought for lunch and why it was unfair that some people got Lunchables every single day. Life's not fair, Bug, David said, draining pasta at the stove. But you got applesauce and you like applesauce. Emma's applesauce comes in a pouch. Ours comes in a cup, same stuff inside. Elena watched this exchange with something close to fascination. The negotiation, the patience, the complete absence of anything transactional. David wasn't trying to win. He was just being a father. When they finally sat down to eat, the spaghetti was simple and perfect. Jarred sauce, nothing fancy, but it was hot and there was garlic bread and everyone ate like they meant it. Sophie told a long story about a squirrel at recess. Tyler got more sauce on his face than in his mouth. David refereed and redirected and laughed, and Elena realized she couldn't remember the last time she'd heard laughter that wasn't polite or strategic. So what do you do, Elena? David asked eventually, wiping Tyler's face with a washcloth. I work in finance, investment management. David nodded. Sounds intense. It can be. You any good at it? Elena hesitated. Yes, that's good. Everybody should be good at something. David said it without irony, without probing, just acceptance. Sophie pointed her fork at Elena. Do you have kids? No. Why not? Sophie, David warned. It's okay, Elena said. I guess I never found the right time. Sophie considered this seriously. Daddy says there's never a right time for anything important. You just have to do it anyway. David's ears went red. That was about learning to ride a bike, Soph. Still true, she declared, and went back to her spaghetti. After dinner, Elena helped clear the table despite David's protests. They worked in easy silence, Elena rinsing while David loaded the ancient dishwasher. Through the doorway, they could hear Sophie reading to Tyler, her voice taking on different characters with complete commitment. She's amazing, Elena said. She is. David's voice carried simple pride. Both of them are. They're pretty much everything. Their mother, Elena started, then stopped. I'm sorry, that's none of my business. David was quiet for a moment. She left when Tyler was 6 months old, postpartum stuff, but also just... She wasn't ready for any of it. I don't blame her. This life isn't for everyone. You make it look easy. David laughed, sharp and surprised. It's not. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. I work overnight security at a hospital so I can be here during the day. My sister watches them when I sleep. I'm tired literally all the time. But yeah, it's worth it. They're worth it. Elena thought about her penthouse, her car service, her assistant who managed her assistant. I have everything, she said quietly, and I can't remember the last time something felt worth it. David didn't offer platitudes. He just nodded. That sounds lonely. It is. They finished the dishes. In the living room, Sophie had convinced Tyler to help her build a blanket fort. It was collapsing on one side, but they were both inside it, giggling. Want to watch them destroy my furniture? David asked. Elena smiled. Yeah, I do. Over the next 2 weeks, Elena found reasons to return. At first, she told herself she was being philanthropic. She brought groceries, expensive things David would never buy himself. Organic apples, good coffee, a toy truck for Tyler that actually had working headlights. David accepted these gifts with grace, but insisted Elena stay to share them. "You bring it, you eat it with us. Those are the rules." So Elena stayed. She learned that Sophie was reading 2 grades above her level but struggled with math. She learned that Tyler had a specific blanket he couldn't sleep without, and would absolutely lose his mind if it wasn't within reach. She learned that David had wanted to be a teacher before life had rearranged his priorities, and that he still read voraciously whenever he found 30 minutes of peace. Elena also learned what it felt like to be trusted without having to earn it through achievement. Tyler would climb into her lap during story time, warm and heavy and completely unself-conscious. Sophie would ask her opinion on important matters like whether blue or purple was better, and actually listen to her answers. And David treated her like a person, not a portfolio. They talked about baseball and books and the impossible logistics of bath time with 2 kids. They didn't talk about money or markets or anything Elena normally discussed. It felt like breathing after holding her breath for years. The shift happened on a Wednesday evening. Elena had stopped by after work, still in her tailored suit and heels. Sophie was practicing writing her letters at the kitchen table, tongue poking out in concentration. "Elena, how do you make a capital Q?" she asked. She showed her. Sophie tried, her face scrunched up in frustration. "Here," Elena said, guiding her hand gently. "Like this." She got it, her whole face lit up. "I did it!" "You did." Sophie threw her arms around her neck, spontaneous and fierce. "You're a good teacher." Something in Elena's chest tightened. When she pulled back, David was watching from the doorway, Tyler asleep against his shoulder. The expression on his face was unguarded, soft. "You're really good with them," David said quietly. "They make it easy." "No, you make it easy, not everyone does." They looked at each other across the small kitchen, and Elena felt the ground shift beneath everything she thought she understood about her life. But the following Saturday brought everything crashing down. Elena had planned to take them all to the Museum of Science. She'd bought tickets weeks in advance, cleared her afternoon. She was actually excited, the kind of anticipation she usually only felt before major acquisitions. She met them at the Common as agreed, but immediately sensed something was off. David's shoulders were tight. Sophie was quieter than usual, and Tyler kept hiding behind his father's legs. "Everything okay?" Elena asked. "Yeah, fine. Let's just get going." They'd barely made it to the museum entrance when Sophie stopped walking. "Daddy, I don't feel good." David crouched down, hand to her forehead. "You're warm, bug." "I'm okay." "No, you're not." He looked up at Elena, apology written across his face. "I'm sorry, we need to go home. She's running a fever." "Of course. Let me help." "We're fine. You should just go. We'll do this another time." There was an edge to David's voice Elena hadn't heard before. Distance, maybe, or something like shame. "David, seriously." "Elena, we're fine. I've got it handled." Elena stood there in her expensive jacket, holding tickets she didn't care about, watching David scoop Sophie into his arms and fumble with Tyler's hand and the diaper bag and everything all at once. She wanted to help. She didn't know how. And the wall David had just thrown up was solid and complete. "Call me if you need anything," Elena managed. David was already walking away. "Sure, thanks." Elena went home to her empty penthouse and paced for 3 hours. She texted, no response. She called, voicemail. By Sunday afternoon, the silence felt like rejection, sharp and specific. She'd clearly crossed some line she hadn't seen. She'd probably made David uncomfortable with the expensive gifts, the attention, the time. Of course, David didn't want some rich woman playing house with his family. Why would he? Elena had been fooling herself, thinking connection could be that simple. By Monday evening, Elena had convinced herself to step back, give David space, Return to the life she knew how to navigate. She was drafting a polite text message when her phone rang. Unknown number. Ms. Castellanos. A woman's voice, professional. This is Jamaica Plain General Hospital. You're listed as an emergency contact for David Fletcher? The world tilted. What happened? Mr. Fletcher was brought in about 40 minutes ago. He collapsed at work. Possible exhaustion, but we're still running tests. He's stable, but he's asking for you. His children are here with a neighbor, but the neighbor can't stay. Mr. Fletcher is quite insistent that I'm on my way. Elena broke every traffic law between her office and the hospital. Her mind was spinning through worst-case scenarios, each more terrible than the last. David's sick. David's seriously sick. Those kids without their father, she found them in the emergency waiting area. Sophie was curled in a plastic chair, Tyler asleep across her lap. An older woman sat nearby, checking her watch with increasing frequency. Sophie saw Elena first. Her face crumpled and she started crying. Real tears, the kind that came from deep fear. Elena crossed the space between them and knelt down. Hey, it's okay, I'm here now. Daddy won't wake up right, she sobbed. The doctors are taking care of him. He's going to be okay. Elena had no idea if that was true, but she said it anyway because Sophie needed to hear it. The neighbor stood. You're the emergency contact? Yes. Thank God I can't stay. My husband needs his medication and I'm already late. Go, I've got them. She left almost before Elena finished the sentence. And then it was just Elena and two terrified kids in a hospital waiting room that smelled like disinfectant and fear. Tyler woke up crying. Elena picked him up automatically and the little boy buried his face in her neck. Sophie pressed against her other side. Is Daddy going to be okay? She whispered. Yes. Elena made her voice certain. Yes, Sophie, he is. Promise. She shouldn't promise. She had no medical expertise, no real information. But she looked down at her face, saw the desperate need for reassurance, and made a choice. I promise. It took 90 minutes before a doctor emerged. David had severe exhaustion and dehydration. He'd been pushing himself too hard, sleeping too little, and his body had simply given out. They wanted to keep him overnight for observation and IV fluids. Can I see him? Elena asked. He's asking for you, and the kids. David looked terrible, pale against the hospital sheets with an IV in his arm. But when Sophie and Tyler ran to him, his face transformed with relief. I'm okay, Bugs, I'm okay, just tired, really, really tired. Sophie was crying again. Tyler was clinging to the bed rail. Elena stood back, giving them space, but David's eyes found hers. You came. Of course I came. The kids are fine. They're with me. Something in David's expression broke. I'm sorry about Saturday. You kept giving us stuff and I couldn't give you anything back and Sophie got sick and I felt like, stop. Elena moved closer. You gave me everything back. You let me be part of this, part of them, that's everything. David's eyes were wet. I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. Let me help. Please. The silence stretched. Sophie was watching them both, her face intense with concentration. Finally, David nodded. Okay. Sophie suddenly perked up. Does this mean Elena can come home with us all the time now? David laughed, tired but real. If she wants to. Elena looked at the three of them, this little broken perfect family that had somehow become hers. Yeah, she said, I really want to. The next 3 months rearranged Elena's life in ways she couldn't have predicted. She cut her office hours, delegated ruthlessly, and started leaving her phone in another room during dinner. She learned to braid Sophie's hair for school. She learned which songs Tyler needed to hear before bed. She learned that David took his coffee black and fell asleep during every movie they tried to watch together. She also learned what it meant to be needed for something other than her strategic mind or her checkbook. When Sophie had nightmares, she called for Elena. When Tyler needed someone to read the same book 17 times in a row, Elena was patient. And when David came home from his overnight shifts, exhausted and worn, Elena was there with hot breakfast and willingness to handle the morning chaos. It wasn't always smooth. David struggled with accepting help, still carried guilt about the imbalance between their worlds. Elena had to learn that not everything could be fixed with money or efficiency. They argued about boundaries and expectations and who was responsible for what. But they also laughed. They built ridiculous towers of blocks and burned pancakes and fell asleep on the couch in a tangle of limbs, while some animated movie played unwatched on the TV. Elena's friends noticed. Her business associates commented. "You're different," her attorney said during a contract review. "Happier, maybe?" "Maybe," Elena agreed. She was. She was absolutely happier. The moment that changed everything happened in April, back at Boston Common where it all started. They were feeding ducks, a weekend tradition now. Sophie was demonstrating her new skill of skipping stones, though most of her stones just plopped straight down. Tyler was more interested in eating the bread than throwing it. A woman approached them, well-dressed and sharp-eyed. Someone from Elena's world. Someone who'd been at the same charity galas and board meetings. "Elena Castellanos," she said, her tone carrying judgment wrapped in politeness. "I haven't seen you at the foundation dinner in months. People are talking." Elena tensed. David's hand found hers automatically, their fingers threading together. "I've been busy," Elena said evenly. "With them." Her gaze flicked dismissively over David and the kids. "That's quite the project you've taken on." Sophie, who'd been listening with increasing indignation, stepped forward. "We're not a project. We're a family. Elena's with us because she wants to be, because we love her, and because she loves us back." The woman blinked, clearly not expecting to be challenged by a 7-year-old. "And you're being rude," Sophie added. "You should probably go away now." David bit back a smile. Elena was openly grinning. The woman left without another word. "Did I do good?" Sophie asked. Elena knelt down and hugged her. "You did perfect." Later, when the kids were chasing pigeons and out of earshot, David leaned close to Elena. "You know that's going to be in some gossip column tomorrow. Dewey's billionaire Elena Castellanos, slumming it with a broke single dad and his kids." "Let them write whatever they want," Elena said. "I know what this is." "What is it?" Elena looked at Sophie, fierce and bright and completely herself. At Tyler, sticky-handed and joyful. At David, this man who'd built a life out of love and stubbornness and absolutely nothing else. This man whose smile made her feel more accomplished than any deal she'd ever closed. "Home," Elena said simply. "This is home." David looked at her for a long moment, and something shifted in his expression, something tender and certain. He reached up and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering against her cheek. "Elena, I know," she whispered. He kissed her then, soft and sure, there in the middle of Boston Common with the spring sun on their faces and their kids' laughter in the air. It felt like the most natural thing in the world, like coming home after a lifetime of wandering. When they pulled apart, Sophie was watching them with the biggest smile on her face. "Finally," she announced. "Tyler, they kissed." "I told you they would." Tyler clapped his hands, not entirely understanding but caught up in his sister's excitement. David laughed, pulling Elena close. "Apparently we've been too slow for Sophie's liking." "Apparently," Elena agreed, her heart full to bursting. 6 months later, Elena sat in her lawyer's office with paperwork spread across the mahogany desk. Not a business acquisition this time, something infinitely more important. "This is significant," her lawyer said carefully. "You're creating a trust that gives him equal access to—" "I know what I'm doing, Richard." "And if it doesn't work out, it will." Elena's voice was steady. "But even if it didn't, they'd still be taken care of. That's the point." She'd restructured her entire estate, set up education funds for Sophie and Tyler, created a trust that would support David's dream of going back to school to become a teacher. It wasn't about obligation. It was about building a future together, removing the financial anxiety that kept David up at night. Outside, David was waiting with the kids in the reception area. Sophie was showing Tyler pictures in a book, her voice patient and encouraging. David watched them with that expression he got sometimes, like he couldn't quite believe they were real. Elena gathered her papers and walked out into the afternoon light. Sophie spotted her and waved. "All done?" David asked. "All done." They'd talked about all of it. The money, the differences between their worlds, the adjustments they'd both need to make. David had been uncomfortable at first, insisting he didn't want her money, but Elena had been clear. This wasn't charity. This was family. This was choosing to build something together. That evening, after the kids were asleep in the brownstone they now shared, the one Elena had bought in Jamaica Plain, because Sophie had cried at the thought of leaving her school district, David found Elena on the back porch. "Penny for your thoughts," he said, settling beside her. "Just thinking about that day in the park when Sophie invited me home. Best ambush of my life," David said with a smile. "Mine too." Elena leaned into him. "I had everything, you know, everything except a reason to come home at the end of the day. And now? Now I have 3 reasons. 3 very good reasons." David was quiet for a moment. Then he pulled a small box from his pocket. Elena's breath caught. "I know we've talked about doing this slowly," he said, "and I know our worlds are different. But I also know that I love you. And Sophie and Tyler love you. And I don't want to waste any more time pretending that this is temporary or uncertain." He opened the box. Inside was a simple ring, elegant in its lack of pretension. Nothing like the ostentatious jewelry Elena usually saw in her circles. It was perfect. "Elena Castellanos, will you marry me?" She was crying and laughing and nodding all at once. "Yes, yes, absolutely yes." He slipped the ring on her finger, and they sat together in the darkness, holding each other as the neighborhood settled into evening quiet. Inside the house, their children slept safely. Tomorrow, Sophie had school and Tyler had his playdate, and Elena had a board meeting she'd probably take from the kitchen table, because that's where life happened now. It would be complicated and exhausting, and full of the mundane magic of ordinary days. Elena couldn't wait. She'd spent 38 years building an empire, believing that success was measured in numbers and acquisitions and the respect of people who didn't actually know her. She'd been wrong. Success was Sophie's hand in hers. Tyler's laughter. David's quiet strength and willingness to let her be part of something real. Success was being part of something bigger than herself. Being needed. Being loved not for what she could provide, but for who she chose to be. A little girl in a red hat had seen her sadness on a November afternoon and offered her an invitation that changed everything. "Come home with us." Such a simple thing, such a revolutionary act of kindness. And Elena, who had everything and nothing, had said yes. Best decision she'd ever made. The wedding happened in spring, small and perfect in the backyard of their Jamaica Plain home. Sophie was the maid of honor, taking her duties with utmost seriousness. Tyler was the ring bearer and promptly dropped the rings in the grass, but everyone laughed, and it became the moment everyone remembered most. Elena wore a simple dress, elegant but not extravagant. David wore a suit Sophie had helped him pick out. When they exchanged vows, Elena promised to always come home. David promised to always leave the door open. In the front row, Elena's business partners sat beside David's hospital co-workers. Her world and his finally merged into something new. That night, after the last guests had left and the kids were finally asleep, Elena and David stood in their kitchen surrounded by the beautiful mess of their celebration. "Mrs. Fletcher," David said, testing out the name. "Ms. Castellanos Fletcher," Elena corrected with a smile. "We compromised, remember?" "We did." He pulled her close. "How does it feel?" Elena looked around their home, at the flowers still fresh in their vases, at the photos on the wall chronicling their journey from strangers to family, at the 2 pairs of small shoes kicked off by the door. "It feels like I finally understand what I was working for all those years," she said. "I was building the resources to support this, to protect this, to make sure that when I found my family, I could give them everything." "You already gave us everything," David whispered. You gave us you. And in the quiet of their kitchen, surrounded by the evidence of their life together, Elena finally understood what her mother had never been able to teach her. That wealth without love was just numbers on a screen, but love with the security to nurture it, that was everything. A little girl's invitation, a father's grateful smile, and a woman brave enough to say yes to something she'd never known she was missing. That was how Elena Castellanos found her way home.